Kieron.
Sorry, this seat's made me feel like Darth Vader.
Well,
I'm in this kind of like, grovel to be mortals sort of
Well, exactly. Have you got your special glove?
Yeah.
Well,
It's a little early for that.
Fabs.
Yes.
So I guess we're going to talk about, we are going to jump around a little bit. I want to talk about Wick Dev, obviously, because it's the end of the series, and, how does it feel? I mean, obviously it's been an incredibly well-received series, but I mean, how does it feel as a creator to come to the end of a project like that?
It's like, we can sleep again. There is a lot of that kind of like, right, it's over. And there's a series of letting goes, is the best way of putting it. As I approach the end, in fact, I'm still actually writing the last issue at the moment.
Oh, really? Okay.
I deliberately wanted to leave the last issue as long as possible.
Yeah.
But it's like last solicit, the last, the word last just starts appearing. And obviously the last time I'm doing this. And then you're kind of like, the last arc is like 120 pages long, like all our arcs. And then it's like, I've got 80 pages left. Or 60 pages left. Then I've got 20 pages left. And those kind of stuff, that gets to beneath you. So it's like, I was a bit worried about it was hard to let go, but the process of doing something is about letting go. I mean, Wick Dev is a book is about many things, but certainly grief among them. And the idea that the process of actually learning to say goodbye is at least part of the process of doing Wick Dev.
Yes. So, I mean, have you achieved everything that you set out to do, the two pair of you, with the book? I mean, just for the book itself, when you had when you first put it together, have you done everything in terms of what you wanted to do with the book?
It's funny, like there's a Belle and Sebastian lyric. I keep on wanting to quote because my tongue is firmly in the cheek.
Like, if
she wants me, if I could do one near perfect thing, I'll be happy. And it's like with Wick Dev, we did a near perfect thing, and I'm not happy. But like we did a lot of what we wanted, as in like it's certainly not perfect. And there are things in the awful calculus of doing a long form series that are hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like Wick Dev as a structural piece, and the people have actually followed it in terms of now the arguments it's put forward and betrayed, and we've reached the point where the last issue that just came out is basically the last major everything you knew is wrong of it.
Yes.
And so when people have gone, now they're going back and reading the first issue for like the fifth time and still seeing stuff that we put there X ago. I mean, our aim is kind of like, this. My big influence is Watchmen, but as opposed to what I took from Watchmen, as opposed to the, the deconstructionary superhero nonsense. Nonsense. I'm exaggerating. Was the idea here is this clockwork machine.
Yes.
And Wick Dev is kind of trying to do a Watchmen type structure over 50 issues. Was the idea, and it's messier than Watchmen in dozens of ways. Not least because Alan's Alan and I'm me. But it is kind of there in that kind of like, it was fancy, we did it, and it feels enormous. It's nearly killed Jamie. That's the big thing. It's like, thank God it's ending.
Yes.
And it's hard. I mean, no one ever. It's not really hard. I've worked building sites. It's not hard.
But mentally, it's quite challenging.
But there was definitely a point around halfway through Imperial phase, which was the 5th and 6th trades.
Yes.
I just wanted it done.
Really?
Like, why are we still doing this book? And this is the thing. Like, almost everybody who does the big long comic runs, they don't do another one immediately.
No.
Like, quite often, like, work for hire, but create our own stuff. Like, I mean, Neil never did another one.
No, that's true.
Warren finished Transmet, then spent 5 years doing like short comics. But Garth took quite a long time before doing The Boys.
Yes.
I mean, Brian Vaughan, he immediately left the industry for a while before coming back with Saga. Like, once you've done it, it's a thing.
Yes.
But like, it certainly takes something out of you.
Yes.
And that's really one reason when with Die is a shorter run.
Yes.
And a lot of the stuff I'm doing is deliberately like 6-issue single statement things.
Yes.
The idea of me ever having 40 more issues to write scares the hell out of me right now.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I am now.
Okay.
But like happy, like dude, I did 9 trades. That's insane.
I was going to ask about the relationship with Jamie. Obviously, your kind of sort of marriage, your sort of weird, your creative marriage.
My comics wife.
Many years. I mean, has it adapted and evolved over the years? How has it changed? Does it become too comfortable sometimes, or is it good because it's comfortable?
It's never comfortable.
Is it never comfortable?
He is like, I don't know. I speak to what people about this quite a lot, and quite often in comics, somebody breaks in with an artist, or like some people come in as a team and we do their first work together, and then the industry tends to pull them apart.
Yes.
And there's rarely get people like the other way around, like Sean and Ed, who of course they were brought together by the industry and they managed to stay together.
Yes.
Me and Jamie are quite unusual in that. Oh no, we came in together, and our precise trajectories meant neither of us were successful enough to escape the other one. Like Jamie was always slightly too left of centre to be like a mainstream Marvel artist,
yes.
and I was never kind of like, and I wasn't that writer at Marvel.
No.
So like, our kind of aesthetics always came quite close together. So by spending like 15 years in the trenches together, like more than 15 years now, you just learn each other.
Yes.
And that's interesting, and like there's an enormous amount of trust, and I'll use the word love there even. Like he's obviously Jamie's got a hypermobility problem now, which is
of course I heard.
and it's getting worse and worse as it progresses. So like we're trying to just get to the end of Wycliffe so he can recuperate. But the family of it all is really very real,
Yes.
and it's kind of like weird and upsetting that I won't be working with Jamie in the near future in like a comic. But it's also like, for God's sake. I mean, that's the funniest thing, because ever since I've been working with him, I've been saying, Jamie, you need to write and draw your own comics.
Yes.
All the time. Write and draw your own comics, Jamie, whilst passing in the next script.
Yes.
It's like, I'm angel and devil. And that originally Wycliffe was designed so he could have every second arc off. It was going to be first arc him,
yes.
second arc someone else.
Yes.
We were like thinking like Jock and Jock on the Losers, as in Jock was the main artist, but
yes.
then every second arc was someone else. That's what we planned. But then Jamie decided
he wanted to do all of it.
He hit a point like after we did the one arc, which was somebody else, Commercial Suicide, he was like, no, I kind of want to do it all now. But like, otherwise he would have done like a series of minis, or maybe worked with another writer.
Yes.
I'm much more comfortable with, like, I presume Jamie likes my stuff. There was definitely for long periods of time.
You weren't sure?
Yeah, I'm insecure enough to think, oh, maybe Jamie just is weirdly stuck with me. And there was literally a moment when I was like almost burst into tears when I realised, oh, Jamie actually likes me. Writers, insecure.
So I guess I do want to move on to Die, obviously. I mean, obviously Die is a very different series. So I mean, working with Stephanie is obviously a very different beast to working with Jamie. I mean, I guess we'll talk about the genesis of the series. So let's talk about how it got started. What was the initial seed for you creatively?
Well, there's kind of like two starts of it. One half of it is just me and Stephanie wanted to do a book together.
Yes.
Like, she did all the covers of Journey into Mystery. Journey into Mystery, I think, is probably the best thing I did for Marvel overall. The covers were like the one coherent aesthetic element, because we had artists on different every arc. I mean, Doug defined the look of the book, the book early on, but Stephanie was the person who kind of kept the aesthetics of these slightly romantic, slightly quirky covers. And it was only in the last issue of that I realised, oh wait, my editor Lauren,
yes,
we were talking about who could do the last issue, and she suggested Stephanie.
Yes.
And I had no idea that Stephanie did internals as well. So we did that issue. And it was like one of the, it's an issue which people still talk about in terms of Marvel work.
Yes.
In fact, it was just like, it was in the top 30, I think, of the best 100 issues of all time in a recent poll. Like, but they're clearly wrong. But like,
but still, it's still flattering. It's still flattering.
It was very flattering to be in. I think it was
course.
maybe 31, something like that.
Yes.
So like, this worked so well. We always go, okay, we'll do a book. That idea, we'll do a book together. Especially with Stephanie. I mean, she's done bits and pieces. She's done single issues or like very short runs, but she's never actually done an ongoing.
No.
So for a few years we were talking about that, and I was trying to find the right project. There was actually there was two other things I was working on before then. So that we were always going to do a fantasy book, because I always kind of knew that we needed a Stephanie Hans fantasy universe.
Yes.
And then there was specifically just me and Jamie and Ray Fawkes bumming around in San Diego like over 2 years ago now. And just joking about whatever did happen to those kids in the 1980s D&D cartoon, and just just riffing like idiots.
Yeah.
But it kind of stuck beneath my skin. Like, and the idea of very basically having these 40-something-year-olds drag back to their teenage fantasy game, and using it as a device to talk about how all their lives have changed, struck me as a kind of like, there's something really powerful there. And I kind of like, oh no, that's interesting. I mean, Return to Narnia is a well-worn narrative structure, but that kind of, oh no, there's something specifically interesting about that. And it got to me, because it was about that evening I was like having a big meal with Eric Stevenson and a load of the image creators. And it just got me halfway through in this moment of like, and I just burst into tears because I kind of realised what the reason was. And it was very much, oh, wait a sec, because the story is, one of the spoilers for Die, like one of the people who went to Die and, didn't come back. And essentially, was part of you, Kieron, was part of you trapped in a fantasy has been trapped in a fantasy universe for like, since you were 16. How is actually being into like fantasy and all the stuff we're in this building to celebrate stunted me emotionally? And that kind of like, asking yourself a really hard question is, that drives so much of my work.
Yeah.
But like that kind of like, it's the classic Simpsons gif. I've wasted my life.
Yes.
That. And so a discussion about that seemed interesting, and especially because it bugs me like how much geek culture is, for want of a better word, pandering but nonsense. So the idea of like actually the thing about that, we're literally going to be the biggest movie of all time.
Yes.
We are the idea of some kind of geek persecution complex does not cut it anymore. And I think there was so much stuff, especially in the 80s and the early 90s. And like my career as a games journalist was like defending games.
Yes.
And we don't need to do that anymore.
They're huge, because they've won basically. Games have won, and comics have won basically as well.
Yeah. And the point being there is, once you've actually won, you don't need to be as defensive anymore. You can actually start discussing stuff in like grown-ups. Yes. And that's kind of what I'm into with Die. Like the idea of like we can unpick all this stuff without, obviously I love it.
Of course.
But like this is all about being a mature human being who can see. People often say like even with Phonogram it is. This is really anti-music. Yeah. Or like Wicked is quite, are you anti or pro these people? And it's not, the point being I'm trying to do this complicated portrait of how it quote-unquote is. And Die's kind of like that, I guess.
Yes.
And the thing is, Die could have been a much smaller, like more character dread, like really like personal, intimate kind of thing. And of course, being me, I just messed that up and threw everything in.
Yes.
Like, it's like kind of, Die has ended up being about literally everything again. But people seem to buy it, which is nice. I was genuinely hoping I would get over my nonsense. Like my
particular obsessions.
Yeah, the thing about Die, actually, slightly different obsessions, which is nice.
Yes.
But as a writer, I think one of my biggest flaws, which is many, is that my tendency is to be a bit too much. Like I kind of not. I don't necessarily edit well. I mean, I was looking at like when I was working with Jason. We were running these dual X-Men books.
Yes.
And Jason was. He was really good at nailing down why this villain is interesting, and it's something you can explain in like half a page. And I don't mean this is a direct, clear storytelling. Whilst I have to have like
20 pages.
No, literally my first reissue arc on Uncanny X-Men when we did the relaunch. The second issue is basically explaining the character, and like the fact that any one of these ideas for Sinister would be enough. I didn't know to do all of them, and there's that all running, and which is kind of. It's the weakness, and it's the reason why I'll never be enormously successful. I mean, I'm much bigger than I thought I ever would be.
Yes.
But like, there's the reason why I will never be Brian K. Vaughan is I don't edit.
I mean, throw everything at the wall, basically.
Which is, I stress this. I'm not. You talk like that, and it sounds like you're dissing people, and you're not. They're smarter than I am.
Yes.
That makes them better writers and makes me like messy. Anyway.
So does Die come from years of working in gaming, basically, from that part of your brain that you were writing about games and that you were thinking about them? So this is like a direct reaction not against, but a reaction to working as a games journalist in your previous life.
I used to say that Phonogram was what I did instead of becoming a music journalist. As in, I did bits of music journalism, but but it was never really something I got to purge. So I tried, like Phonogram was kind of like this pustule that grew in my body, and the lanced it, and the pus was Phonogram, and like Die is kind of the same thing. I think Die is very much the sister book to Phonogram in that it's quite intimate.
Yes.
It's quite personal, and it's born of like. I mean, I haven't written about games properly for like 9 years. And
so in your system, though.
That's what I mean. As in, like, it's been in my system and I have not expressed it.
Yes.
So in other words, it's actually become something else, and it's metamorphosed. There's the word I can't say.
Metamorphosed.
Thank you very much, Joel. Changed into something else. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you do. You get this kind of like distilled weirdness, and like. I was aware that issue 3 of Die is something I was trying to do all the way since issue 4 of Phonogram. Yes. And the idea of the critical essay in the form of warped genre fiction. Yes. Like issue 3 is an expansion of Tolkien and talking about it on various different angles. And I've been trying to find a way to make people like that forever. And mainly failing, because they're the stuff that people always hate. And like 3 was the first...
the meta story?
No, even more, like the meta on top of meta, and it's just a bit too much. And it's me... and I think issue 3 was the first time I actually pulled it off, as in it reviewed very well. So it's good. Part of me just, I don't know. I think there is that, you know what I mean? That's absolutely 100% comes to me as a games journalist.
Yes.
And like even more so, but as well as my ideas as a games writer and somebody who's lived in game culture and somebody who lives in culture per se, it's also a thing born of research. Like, I've done the typical, I've really dug into like I knew a lot and I know a lot more now.
Yes.
I guess. That which is fun because, I'm there's a fundamental journalist part of me.
So you're still there, of the curiosity, the innate curiosity, and if you're going to write something, you have to put the time in to make sure that what you write sounds kind of at least credible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tarot. I mean, like, I said the insecurity is the thing that I read that into, because I know some, but like, I definitely do more research than you need. but I definitely put the hours in. It's just one of those things that I'm sorry, it's nice, you know. Like as a writer, I like you learn stuff, and you're like, oh my god, this is into it, and that, a lot of my
use it. You can
a lot of my books are about powered by enthusiasm. This kind of like, oh my god, have you heard about this? Holding up pictures of whatever, and it's like Dye specifically has got this. The background to Dye is what is. There's various, there's stuff about the characters in the world and all that stuff. But the question eventually kind of comes to surface: what the hell is this place?
Yes.
Why does this exist? And that kind of like that conspiracy kind of aspect to it, being pieced together from everything I've learnt about like role-playing games, historically speaking, is interesting. It's like I've said that the Brontes turn up in the next arc. This is not something I think most people would expect from an RPG comic.
Yeah, because they demanded it.
Yeah. You can't say no to the Brontes.
No, of course not. So I mean. Do you like world building? I mean, obviously, WicDev was hugely about world building, and Dye has elements of that. Is it something that you enjoy as a writer, creating these worlds that you've created almost from whole cloth yourself? To say, this is a new world that people haven't seen before. It will take elements from other people's creations, but it's your world, and WicDev, was yours and Jamie's world as well. So, do you enjoy world building as a writer?
I'm sorry, world building is in. I am. Awkward is the best way of putting it. As in, like, there's a very much the fashionable take about where people go through cycles about writing advice, and the stuff that becomes like a dogmatic thing, a status quo, ends up being deconstructed and taken into new form. At the moment, we're well into all world building is bad kind of argument.
Yes,
which is still. I still think it's a slightly kind of like
it's a bit of a simplistic approach.
Yeah, it's still like it's trying to kill your parents in that way. It's like it's still kind of people kind of saying rude words to Tolkien, which me too. I'm very aware. I lean towards the more cocky and epic poo kind of take. I like to think my world building alters depending upon the book I'm doing. I mean, something like Phonogram.
Yes.
Is the world building is back to front, as in there's no firm world building in Phonogram. That frustrates people. Phonogram is based around the idea that everyone's magic system in Phonogram is A, individual, B, only explains stuff that music does. In other words, if music cannot literally do this, it doesn't happen. So in other words, it's much more of a literary metaphor than a genre metaphor, despite it looking like genre fiction. Versus something like Uber, and Uber basically runs on graphs. Uber is that's like my war game system essentially, because it's a game that's about material realism. The idea of these are fundamentally mechanical laws interacting. So that's the kind of thing. So there's definitely that kind of what is that world building for, which is like not quite saying world building for world building's sake. Yes. Like I'm also quite lazy is the word. I mean, like I feel like I'm lazy. I kind of know I'm not.
I mean, use certain things like ways of shorthand to put stuff across.
You definitely don't need to do the D&D source book for like. Before you're writing it, that's distracting. But the idea of like what is an interesting world building structure. In case of WicDev explicitly, I have the central myth.
Yes.
I think a lot about like the symbol, the story's what it's about. But WicDev is designed to also be flexible. The idea that I know that I'm only going to do a tiny fraction of the 90 years recurrences. But at the same time, here's a good point. I did not know when actually all the years happened until near the end.
Really?
It was like that issue we go all the way through time.
Yes.
I did the whole spreadsheets at that point. I'd done the maths to make sure I could set them roughly where I needed to. But in terms of specific years, so I do the world building as required. It's what, but as in what do you need? It's like improv structure, isn't it? Like the idea of at the beginning we'll have an opening. It's like not even improv structure. This is like a narrative structure, in that I don't necessarily plot the whole thing of WicDev, but like I know the end of the first arc, I know the end of the second arc.
Yes.
I know what the first and second arcs are about. But if you asked me what happened in issue 8, I probably couldn't have told you. Actually, I'm lying. It would have been the dance scene. But I could have I know this. You've got to basically have a structure that's strong enough to support itself, but also be free enough to allow the creator to express themselves.
Yes.
So that's kind of what the sort of building that WicDev had, as in here's a really good central motif and like ideas, and we'll build on that. But something like Dye, as you correctly know, Dye is a real world building.
Yes, yes.
As in Dye is a much more like, I'm doing simultaneously the Phonogram world building, where you've got these entire realms which are poetic explanations of like Tolkien's inspirations in World War One. So you've got stuff like that, but which is very much like the literary metaphor side. And then you've got stuff which is like, I've literally written the role playing system. I've written the.
You've created a system that you want to apply in the story.
Yeah, all of it, like they're
bits of it.
The system is more like an adaptation of Dye, but the bits of the Dye system that goes back into the comic as well. And it's definitely in my head now become this kind of single sigil to go all Grant Morrison. You know, it's kind of all this is Die together.
It's your Abscess comic.
Yes, very much so. In fact, actually, I actually was in Abscess recently.
I can tell, yeah.
But specifically with Die, there's a quote which Greg Stafford passed recently. Greg Stafford being the guy who, very famous RPG designer, he designed like Pendragon and RuneQuest and stuff like this. And there's a podcast I was listening to, Ken and Robin talk about stuff. And describe, you know, Tolkien's Middle-earth is basically a fantasy world as designed by a linguist. You know, the idea of it's a world which is basically
it's a metaphor for...
It's emerges from... He was interested in basically, he wanted to write languages.
Yes.
You need a world to inspire language because that's how things work. So that so much about Middle-earth is about linguists. He was, and Greg was a comparative theologist, I think. That was his background. I think that's right, someone correct me. But if you read RuneQuest, it's very much a world that's made by that. It's a world that's basically about gods and how people write gods and vice versa. And thinking about that kind of stuff made me realise what Die is. Die is literally... It's a D20 floating in space with 20 kingdoms in, each kingdom in part of the things that go up at RPGs. This is a game world made by Critic. This is literally a piece of criticism.
So Elvis Costello, because you know they always say that Costello got on with for music because he looked like a music critic.
Yes, I love that line.
You remember that? It's a great quote.
But this is literally it's a big meta fantasy about fantasy, but it's also heartfelt enough because you don't fall in love with it. It's that kind of that's the thing I think that hopes it makes it more than just cold exercise, as in it comes absolutely from the heart. So that Die is very much a fantasy world as made by Critic, and rest.
So I mean, in terms of research, do you ever have to stop yourself and go?
Yes.
You know, I've spent 6 months reading about something that's relating to the sort of the stuff that you're working on, but you have to say to yourself, I've got to deliver the script next week.
Yes.
I can't immerse myself any more in this because I know enough. Because otherwise. I guess if you do too much research, then the piece can become dead, and it's just it's an accurate piece, but it doesn't have that emotional core in the heart that the best fiction does.
I think there's definitely like the Wick Div specials. We did one of them, but every 6 months or so.
Yes.
And each one was basically 6 months of research, and there's definitely and the first draft of almost all the specials was deader than the last draft, as in a lot of the process was me cutting out words, as in the reader does not need to know me knowing specific wines which Romans drank. You know what I mean? Every word that people don't understand.
Extra colour, which is fun, but it doesn't necessarily...
But also, it's confusing. As in, literally, you'll see that word and some people will just go, I don't know what that means. No. And then go, and then you've lost them. Which is a shame. But it's also true. You're right, the actual deadline for doing the research is, Stephanie needs a script, Jamie needs a script.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's that second, I'll write it now. And you always find, because basically, as you say, it's a 20-page story.
Yes.
Or 25-page story. A lot of it's just like me exploring and playing with the ideas, and it's part of the concept of research. And this is the fun thing: the research is the chance to think about the topic.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily you looking for research.
So to crystallise what you want to do, basically.
Exactly. And same with Die. The fact we had 2 years developing of Die before really, I'm still researching it now. And that makes me to chew over Die in a very, ruminate. I felt like a cow chewing over stuff. There's a bit of that. I mean, issue 8 of Die I've got to write pretty much immediately. And I'm not happy with the amount. I still have some research to do.
Really?
Up to level I may push some of the story to issue 9 to give myself another month. But yeah, it is always artist needs a script. I mean, that's kind of that's the Alan Moore rule. And
main motivator.
Yeah, in that, if I cannot give this person a script, they cannot earn money.
No.
You know what I mean? That's kind of the only... All my pretensions don't really matter compared to, people got to eat.
But I mean, the weird thing is that fantasy and sci-fi, despite the huge success of things like Game of Thrones, obviously had Lord of the Rings a few years ago, and also sci-fi as well, there still seemed to be a kind of a snobbery. You probably heard the thing about the Ian McEwan interview talking about his new novel, his sci-fi, because no one's written a sci-fi novel before. And it's this weird thing that that Game of Thrones is arguably one of the most successful TV series of all time. Lord of the Rings made tons of money, and there are all these things. Potter is huge, and yet there's still this sort of literary snobbery that this stuff isn't seen. Someone like Bradbury isn't seen like a proper writer, even though these people, they were genius. There's still that thing. There's still the thing, that the rest of the world seems to find hard to get over.
And I would say, how to phrase this? Literary fiction is not the rest of the world.
No, of course. No, obviously.
I would say, we're sitting in these chairs right now. This feels more like literary fiction. You know what I mean? We're sitting in our big plush chairs.
No, I know.
This isn't the real world.
No.
Ian McEwan sitting in this chair talking about...
in this rarefied atmosphere.
I'm more worry about us arguing against me. Kieron could say it, and it's so obviously dumb.
Yeah. Yes.
the idea that it derails us for like multiple weeks talking about him, that's what worries me. As in, like, we should be able to just...
We're devoting too much time
exactly.
to something
Who literally cares? You're an idiot. You know, so like, he's like, right, love, but that kind of like, oh no, you're just wrong. And the ability to just go, you're just wrong.
It's a very naive thing to say, you would have thought, because you would have thought he'd be savvy enough to go, you know, there are industries built on these people's work, and you know they've been around for years, and they've done some amazing things. So just, you know, don't say that. Or just shut up.
I mean, they've been saying that forever, and it's like kind of like, you know what I mean? And that's why it doesn't quote unquote bother me as much. In that kind of like, yes, we've heard this song before. We all know how this goes.
Yes.
It's a waste of my time to even engage with it. Does that make sense?
Of course, no, that's a fair comment. So I mean, this Die has obviously been a huge success going back. I mean, I'm sure it's something that you try not to take too much notice of, because it can be quite distracting, because, you know, you're there to write with Stephanie and you're there to create a series, but does it ever become distracting? You go, oh God, no, so issue 3's gone back to press 5 times now, and issue 2's gone back, I can't even keep track now, but does it ever get distracting?
Yes, tell you what, this is literally... I was saying this to someone earlier, and this is the least sympathetic, oh, my money shoes are too tight kind of story. But they're kind of like, oh no, it's Thursday night and we've just got to work out another cover before tomorrow. Oh, it's so hard. This is like, but yeah.
It sold another 30,000 copies or whatever, and we have to do another printing.
I wish. It just, it is that level of, oh no, you don't object to it. Because it's definitely better than the other. I mean, I've been in books that have sold nothing as well. But they're kind of, yeah, it does that, especially how quickly it has to be done.
Yes.
And it's certainly distracting for Stephanie. This is one of the most interesting things. Me and Jamie, of course, worked as this team forever. It was like my comics wife. And Stephanie has never really done stuff outside Work for Hire before.
No.
And I mean, she's done, like, you've got to go back to it, though. And she's never actually ran her own book before, and she's never done an ongoing book.
So it feels strange for her, presumably.
Yeah, so I'm, like, she's growing me her comics dad.
Really?
And, like, you know, that says a lot about the different, like, because I have to basically spend a lot of time explaining to Stephanie what's going on and stuff. Yes. And, like, it seems that you sort of tell with the fact that the original, like, alt covers have been done, were incredibly intricate, and the later ones are kind of like just some tweaks, and that's because I told Stephanie just do some tweaks, it's okay, but she's very proud because she wants to do covers. Yes. But at the same time, now we've gone to 5th one, it's like she can't, you know, having to basically
another incredibly complex image that takes weeks to draw.
No, it takes her a day because she's fast when she wants to do a cover, but that kind of that takes out a rhythm. Yes. So yeah, that's like there is a problem with that, but that's purely practical. Yes. And like that's kind of like, and you work your way around, and it's fun. I mean, seeing like it's very hard to tell Stephanie. A, I can't tell her anything because she's a partner, but B, it's very hard to talk her out of doing a beautiful picture when the picture is so beautiful.
No, exactly.
So why did you make this wonderful thing? You know, it's amazing. Honestly, her working with her is really interesting. In a kind of like Jamie's Jamie's even colder than I am. I'm like the passionate one in the team, I think. I mean, cold is the wrong word. Jamie's, I describe him like the world's greatest music producer. He's all about
slightly detached, in a good way.
You know, he's everything's perfect with Jamie. As in lines, and he's working out structures, and he really small things which would not bother him enormously. Yes. Conversely, Stephanie is the metaphor I always use the ocean, as in she's very powerful and tempestuous, and she goes the way she wants to. Yes. And that kind of like is. Me and Jamie is like this. It becomes all about graphs and like very precision. And with Stephanie it's a Titian of her. She's this big, impressionistic, grand, operatic painter. And I sort of drill. I give her a lot of ideas. She comes back with a lot more. She's like really invents a lot on the page. And in the storytelling, this is the key stuff we need. These are the key beats. Everything else is goes. And then I kind of like work around work. So you notice that Die is much more captiony than Wigdiv is. And it's partially more captiony because Stephanie is doing more of the impressionistic stuff, whilst I'm doing more of the kind of like basic storytelling. I mean, so that applies, you know, it's a different sort of relationship between the two of us, which is so much fun because you kind of like, the last thing I wanted to do was like Wigdiv again. You know, that was especially with Die. I wanted to do something with, not pop music. The characters at least as old as I was. That was like I know the weirdness of how I got into writing teenagers for like 10 years. That was not what I planned. You know what I mean?
It just happened. Just fell into it.
It was like literally opportunity. Like I didn't. You know, Phonogram was really about for late 20s. Really, there was like a handful of teenagers in the second arc. We did Kid Loki. Matt Fraction made Kid Loki. Yeah. So like I was planning to do a Loki book. So I suddenly got Kid Loki.
They got Young Avengers.
Yes, we asked to do. Well. I didn't ask to do. You know, Axel came to me saying, "Do you want to do Young Avengers?" And I said no. Well, just because I don't think I've any. Young Avengers is a great book, but a very different book to what I was doing. Yes. And he said, "Think about it," and I found a way to make myself care. And we did Young Avengers, which obviously was, you know, a book people liked. Then, of course, spinning off that, it's like, okay, I guess we do something like our own thing, which builds from the work we're doing on Young Avengers. So in other words, yet more young people. And that's suddenly like literally 10 years of my life. And it wasn't planned as such. So I knew that I didn't want to be trapped there forever.
So they didn't offer you young Thor then?
I mean, they've offered me all manner of... I mean, I've said no to... Like, I say no to everything at the moment. But I've definitely said no to a lot of teenage books.
Yes.
Just for the simple reason I don't want to just be that. I mean,
teenage guy.
Yeah, I mean, especially this... You know, people ask you... Especially the kind of teenage books I do.
Yes.
So, I said, Cat's at least as old as I am, and also a completely different way of writing. I wanted to be slightly more difficult. I wanted to be more complicated characters. It's sort of telling that Wictive has like a cast of 13, 14, and Die is a cast of 6.
Yes.
By definition, I'll be spending more time with those characters, and I'll be tighter on them, and I'm stripping away a lot of my... wankiness is a word. I don't like the word pretension, but like the performance, you know, like wanky. I much prefer to, you know, wanky is honest. Pretentious, pretentious I hate. It's one of my least favourite words. It's like pretentious implies you're lying.
Yes.
You know, like no, that's just how I am. I'm
wanky.
I'm, you know, wanky's honest. I really am. I am wanky. Listen to me. Where was I? Yeah, it's honest. Like my biography. But yeah, so like trying to like be. You know, and also write about stuff I've never written about before.
Yes.
I mean, not just the topics, but also like some of like the emotions, some of the sexuality stuff, and all those kind of like themes I wanted to hit up as well. So yeah.
So Die, is it a mini-series or is it an ongoing series?
Ongoing.
It is ongoing.
It's like Wictive though. Like I know the end of Die now.
So it is going to be quite a long series.
About my traditional answer is about half the length of Wictive.
So like 24 issues or something.
Yeah. Well, that's like 20, 24. Of course, the issues are longer. Like Die's 25 pages.
So it's longer page count than
yeah, exactly. So, you know. And of course, I think Die is different from Wictive, and there's no chance for a sequel to Wictive, because it literally has an ending you can't go past.
Yes.
Whilst Die is like... I was like, oh...
So you could do more.
Yeah, I could go back... You go back... I sort of got the... Actually, I'm not going to say that. Ask me afterwards, because it's such a good idea. Not a good idea. It's such a me idea. That I don't want to sort of spoil it for people.
Call it Die Another Day.
Oh, very good. Die Hard 2. Yeah. But yeah, that.
So you're also, as well as that, which I've taken a lot of time, you're still doing work for Marvel currently.
Just like I've handed in my... Actually, the last page from my Star Wars came in this week. As an angel handed it in. So
you have actually finished now?
Yeah, I finished like about a month ago. And that's my last work for Marvel. Actually, I did one more thing for them, which is like a very short thing. And at the moment, I've got no Marvel work. As in, I've said no to everything. I don't want to do any work for hire at the moment.
So you're working on... What else are you working on?
Well, also finishing this week was Thunderbolt from Dynamite, which...
that must have been a fun series to...
It was hilarious. It's been so much... I mean, I desperately want to work with the team again. They're just this... They're my favourite... Immediately, this feels like a team in the same way that Young Avengers felt like a team. So I need to work out, can we stay together somehow? But that's really fun. The ending is smart and weird and horrible and cute. Casper and Hassel and Mary have done amazing things. I'm also... So that's going... that'll be in a trade soonish. I'm doing a book over at Boom with Dan Motter.
Oh, that's the King Arthur book.
Yes.
That looks fantastic.
Once and Future. I'll show you some of the ink in my pockets.
Love to see it.
Lean over here and just show you now.
Oh, that's great, yeah. It looks like the Arthur thing is interesting. Seems to be... I mean, I've been rereading Hellboy, and obviously there's an Arthurian connection there, and you had I didn't see the film, Once Future Kid, but I heard it was pretty good, and it's interesting that the Arthurian... I guess we can talk about that. It seems like King Arthur is still... It still connects with people. This ancient myth.
Yeah.
It's still. I mean, why do you think that is? Is it the universality of it, or what's the reason?
What was the name of the Monmouth book?
I think it's just the history of Britain, wasn't it?
Yeah, the history of Britain. Like there's it's one after that. Then I forget. There's of the nature of Britain or something like that.
Possibly.
I forget.
The same one that Arthur's mentioning, King Lear is mentioning as well. So that's the only one I ever remember reading.
Yeah, but yes, basically there is a kind of not fundamental. There's a dialogue with the nature of Britain and Englishness and all these kind of different ideas in there, which is interesting. I mean, like, I tell you, this is the weirdest thing. Being me, I've done the research, and I don't the story idea I'm doing.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's done.
Really.
And that's weird. Like, as in that's kind of like
because Arthur's such a well-mined subject.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's such a basic idea, and it's revealed in the first issue, and it's that kind of like, oh right, yeah, I don't think anyone's done this. Which is fun. I think this is like part of doing Once and Future is I want to do all my work for hire books are nightmarishly quote unquote hard.
Yes.
Like Wick Dev and Die are these clearly like hard work, wrestling with God kind of things. And and my work for hire can quite often be fun.
Yes.
Yes. Like something like Dr. Afro is emotional and pop, but it's clearly meant to be fun.
Yes.
I'm sort of coming out, why do you never do fun stuff for yourself? And it does make me wonder.
So this was an opportunity for you to...
Dan Motter, who is, trust me, like his work on Klaus has been amazing always. But I think this is on another level. This is another step up for him. He's such an incredibly state-of-the-art, energetic storyteller. So this is the kind of thing. It feels like the action movie on paper of it all. And it's like the basic concept of Once and Future is about a grandmother-grandson like monster hunting team against the backdrop of the Arthurian mythos. She had no idea. And the boy, the grandson, Duncan, has no idea that his gran was a monster hunter. And because monsters have all disappeared. There's a line in the first issue, which is pretty much, he finds a weapon that she got. What's this for? Oh, it's for hunting vampires.
What are they?
Yeah. You hunted vampires? Yeah, I hunted vampires. What happened? I ran out of vampires. And that's Gran. She's been retired forever because literally there's not monsters anymore. And monsters are coming back, and that's kind of where the story kicks off.
It's kind of like Buffy meets King Arthur.
It is like Buffy, basically. If Buffy retired in that way, and like Buffy in 50 years' time with her grandson who doesn't know anything about this, and that's right. The book's the fundamental moment of the book, and it happens a lot, is Gran being utterly phlegmatic about something whilst her son goes like this out of horror. It's good fun, so much fun.
So why Boom?
They asked me.
They did ask you. Okay. Well, fair enough.
It was one of the situations where they came to me with a compelling deal, a compelling infrastructure. And damn, as in,
he's a great artist.
Exactly. It's like kind of, here is an entirely reliable, brilliant artist, and a lot of support. Because with my time, my natural is always to an image book.
Yes.
But I have not got the mental headspace to do another image book. As in, because image books involve a lot more organisation, and there's stuff which you have to do which you don't do on other books.
Yes.
So the idea of actually having someone and also I've never worked with them. Oh, lying. I've worked with them once, but in 2008, so
long time ago.
Yeah, and I was a very different writer then. So the idea of and I really like a lot of the moves Boom does in the industry. I mean, also how they announce Once and Future and then what they're saying, offering to retailers, and their relationship with them, that's all really exciting. So it's like this sounds like a fun and easy way to do a book, which I'll enjoy. And I've messed up anyway because I've done too much research again.
Yeah.
It's like I was reading entire comparative histories of Arthur, not even reading the legends. I'm reading the criticism around the legends, which is such a me thing to do.
Is Arthurian stuff, is it something that interested you prior to them coming to you?
Not to the a bit. I mean, this is an idea. The core idea of Once and Future is something I've had for quite a while.
Yes.
It was that kind of any writer, they've got all their kind of ideas they may do one day. That was in my idea I may do.
Box tricks that you might end up.
So it's I was thinking about how can you do. Oh, I can't tell you that. That'll spoil the story. Yeah.
Okay. But obviously you've been a professional writer now not a journalist, but a fiction writer for 20. Is it 20 years?
No, not 20.
15, 16.
I think I sold my first story to Games Workshop in 2003, but I didn't actually get work. But then there was. No, say 2003 because I was doing comic strips for magazines.
16 years.
But I'd only really count my career starting properly with phonograms. That's 2006.
But now you see yourself,
old
as a writer rather than as a journalist after 15, 16 years.
Yeah, I tell you what. Actually, I found myself the idea. I've been full time. I was being the kind of 2006 to 2010 was a kind of liminal state.
Yes.
I was definitely a dual class writer critic kind of person. Whilst the last 10 years, since 2010, I've been a full-time. I've just been a comic writer, and I haven't really done any serious criticism since about 2012. And part of me is I need to change up my gears a bit again because I'm aware. I look at my career and I basically have 8-year gaps in stuff.
Really,
and then try something. Then you can see me segueing into something else.
But you still run the blog, don't you?
RPS? No. We sold RPS a while ago.
Did you?
Yeah. I've stopped writing it. Last time I left in 2010, and I stopped writing for about 2012 because I stopped playing video games. Do
you miss
a bit
working on that because it's the idea of having an online diary, a little? And it's because it's looking into your headspace, wasn't it? It was talking about how you approach
I mean, obviously, I keep my work blog. Actually, my work blog's
well,
down
work blog
now.
is one I was thinking of.
Oh no, sorry, yeah. But so my
my
newsletter is kind of what I do now. So like, I do this weekly newsletter, and that's really a chance for me to do like weekly pieces of writing. That's because the worst thing about being a full-time comic writer is I'm aware my prose has atrophied considerably.
Because you haven't worked that muscle in a while.
Yeah. As in, like, probably so much of my writing is not done for people to see. It's done for other artists and writers.
Yes.
And, so I'm writing about story rather than writing story. So at least part of the reasons why I've done a few more short stories in the last few years. For like people have asked me and I've jumped on them. And we did the Wick Div issue, which was a half prose, half art.
Yes.
And this newsletter. So a lot of what I'm doing is trying to get my prose back up to gear because the novel is inevitable.
Is that coming?
Nah.
At
some point. It's definitely I'm flirting with the idea, and if I'm
Yes.
flirting with the idea, that implies I'll be thinking about doing it in 2 years' time. That kind of thing. That's, I
You heard that first.
I might be crap at it. Is the thing. It's that kind of I want to do some work and see what I can do and actually thing.
So I mean, I guess is it one of these things where you sort of the work that you do most recently, you sort of how do you feel about the work that you do most recently? Is it ambivalence? Once you've turned it in, is it one of those things you either really hate what you've done recently, or it's something you think that I can stand up and say that this is one of the best things I've done in this particular field? I mean, what is your attitude towards your work?
I'm going with full Muhammad Ali here, and I'm the greatest of all time. No, it's complicated. Like occasionally, you have like complicated feelings about all your work. Like even the good stuff, you kind of I can pick out panels and go, I wish I hadn't done that, but. It must be at the moment I'm in the worrying position of actually being very happy with everything that's coming out. Like even this, which is rare. I can't think of a time in my career I've been as happy with the work. I mean, it isn't perfect, but in terms of like between Die and Wick Div and Thunderbolt,
yes,
I think these are strong. These are the sort of books I want to be writing. That's what I mean. It's not even whether it's good or bad or not. It's like these are the kind of stuff I want to be doing
at this precise moment.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and Once in Future being a different sort of thing as well. And Ludocrats is actually going to happen. I don't want to announce the new artist yet, but we've had to change it.
Oh, fine, okay.
But that'll actually happening, which would be a miracle. So that's the thing is people keep on talking to me, and I just feel in a very worryingly blessed place. As in, I have not been as
happy. Something's going to happen.
Yeah, but at the same time, this is actually the downside of it. Is that I feel like I am. I'm at risk. I see this. I've been doing this long enough that I feel I'm somehow got a bit sloppy.
Do you feel like someone's going to be that long to replace you?
No,
not literally. But I mean,
no, literally, it's comics.
Well, yes,
but I feel like I've been doing this long enough that I can do stuff without planning as much.
Yes.
And this is actually one of the things. Have you ever read Alan Moore's essays on comics?
Yes.
And it's like, he writes his first four, which is him circa Watchmen. And the last one he wrote, like, early noughties. And it's basically, these are reasonably, usable thoughts for, like, someone early in their career.
Yes.
But he's like, no, the real thing is, like, when you've actually done all your early goals,
yes.
when you've actually done everything you want, how can you stay interested? And that's the thing that worries me, as in, like, I'm aware that I can write a script off the top of my head and it will be better than most people. And that's depressing, because that is like a temptation of you could.
You mean you could just kind of take the easy option for certain things and go, I know I can do this. I don't do quite as much research as I would have done.
Or not even the research. It's like the research is stuff I like. But it's just the writing a bit. And there's bits I was aware that you should have, there's been a couple of things in scripts recently where I've saved it. As in, like, I made a mistake at the scripting stage.
Yes.
And I've realised later, and I've solved the problem by a few script, like, dialogue tweaks.
Yes.
And no one will ever know, but I know I did. But I wouldn't have messed...
No.
Like, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. And that worries me.
Should writing be hard, then? Physically and mentally?
I'm not saying it's hard, I just think I should... Like, if it's precise, it's precise. It's like, what did you miss? And that's the thing that's bugging me, and that's actually the thing why I'm thinking I need to get out of comics for a while. Is that the fact if I'm starting to be even a little sloppy at times, that can only get worse. Which is at least one of the reasons why I'm doing stuff which is challenging for me. I don't know. I'm not my worst critic, because frankly I've read 4chan. But I'm pretty hard on myself.
Yes.
But it's I'm saying that's the confusing thing about being a writer. I'm as happy as
mixed signals. All these mixed signals that you get.
I'm as happy as I've ever been with my work. At the same time, I can't but see why that ship's about to sink.
Yes.
Satisfaction is not something that easily happens to me.
No. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions. So we'll start with Alex.
Yeah.
I was going to, as a former critic, how do you respond to criticism or review of your work? Do you appreciate it? Do you read it, or do you let it just kind of slide off your back, and it's nothing compared to the criticism that you've given yourself?
Well, I just calmly look at, find the mark. If it's low, I write the name down on my special list and plan revenge. No, sorry, it's one of my...
Voodoo doll?
Yeah, no, they're not worth a voodoo doll. Just a bullet.
Or maybe a Funko. You could have a Funko with the head of certain people you can...
Funkos are expensive. No, really jokey aside, because I'm like... I think many creators have never been critics, therefore most creators have a lot of creators seem to have no understanding why people do criticism. As in, they fundamentally disrespect critics for existing. And I've never been that. I've also been aware that there's quite a lot of people in other art forms. Some of the people who are actually hardest on critics were ex-critics themselves. And the problem, of course, as somebody who is, because if you know how the sausage is made, you can see what people are doing. And when someone is quote-unquote wrong, and the thing is, there are times when, like, I'll come back to it in a second. And they're like, what's it? Chrissy Hine used to beat up journalists, didn't she? That kind of like, Chrissy Hine used to be a critic. That kind of that.
Tony Iommi, didn't he beat up?
But there's all manner of this kind of
these things, yeah.
There's like, and I would never want to be. I don't want to be that person. So I spend a lot of time like being careful with my interactions with critics, and I'm quite encouraging. I occasionally feel like quite parental to some, especially young critics. Like when especially if someone's interviewing me, it's that kind of like, okay, you making sure they've got their tape working, and like just like. I feel like I'm trying to help them through and be better because I've known how hard that job. The thing is, I've done the job, and I've done the job for no money. Like when you have the real fan press, so you're trying to like make it as easy as possible. But there's also the fact that there's no way to say this without sounding like a complete like monster. But I'm a better critic than most of the people who write about me. So when I read their criticism, I know what they're making. As in, it's not like I read their argument and see their argument. I see, oh, you're doing this argument, which is a tradition. Therefore, I know why you have not thought about this topic. Okay, quite often they're right. You know what I mean? As in, like, when I see someone who's right, okay, that's intellectually coherent. Yes, you're not my side, but that's great. And occasionally you get stuff, no, you're being a bit cowardly. You're using this trick, which I know because I've used it, to hide the fact. Like, I mean, a classic and minor thing a critic does is sort of be dismissive of the work without actually saying a work it prefers. So in other words, that kind of like, this is a poor example of the genre of superhero comics, without really staking your master. So what is a good example then? You know what I mean? Really basic stuff like that. And I see that, and they're transparent to me. So there's definitely critics I have absolutely no time for, and I wish I could pick fights because I love arguing not even about my work, just work. But I can't do that. I just don't get to do that anymore, which is sad. Does that answer the question? I mean, mostly I really try to encourage people, and I know it's hard. But I do have very high standards of criticism because it's like, I was a critic for like 15 years, and we know how little money we get. So like, you don't do it for anything other than love. So like, when I see someone not being good, it does annoy me.
As I say, I think because you're quite self-aware about both your previous career and the work you did, you kind of see that you are your own critic as well.
I mean, like, and I love seeing people write. Even like, I love seeing people genuinely engage with the work. Like I had in whatever way they engage, and whether it's fan art or like doing their own stories, or like literally writing big essays, thinking about what this has meant to them. That's absolutely, because I'm somebody whose life was transformed by art. And all the art they've consumed, and a lot of my work is about how art has changed me. So seeing people basically metabolise stuff I've done in the same way is literally as good as it gets. The idea that people, I know what it means to care about art, and see someone else care about my stuff that much, that's like magical.
Does anyone come to your house to talk to you about Wig Dev outside?
I managed to avoid it actually. But
it's a serious question.
No, I managed to no. So far, no one has. Please don't. But I have people crying at cons quite regularly. It's
what
like
would come up and cry to you. Well, I mean, they just read the latest issue and
not
affected.
Not affected. I think like this book has meant so much to me.
Yes.
And that kind of like, and that, you see that. And I know I've got friends.
That must be quite odd.
Yes,
as a writer, to think that your work has actually physically affected or emotionally affected people reading it.
Yeah, it's odd, but at the same time, as I was just saying, in the fact I'm somebody who feels like that about art. So when someone does that, I get it. Because I've never gone up to someone and cried at them, but I've certainly cried in my bedroom over how amazing a Kaneki album was. That kind of that. So I understand that's holy in that way. So it happens regularly enough to have a sort of drill, as in you kind of go into want to support people mode, make sure they're okay. Because this isn't about you. This is about them. Yes. This is about something they have felt to do with the work. So that's what it's about. But I always remember that.
A good rapport with a creator who's had that much
Yeah, it's
so it's like passing on because you kind of got your passion from. I mean, everyone knows that obviously Warren Ellis was very supportive towards you, and he gave you a lot of help, and so it's kind of, is it like passing things on
a bit?
in a way?
You just want to, like, yes, absolutely, and all of that. But also, you're aware that if someone comes up to you and he was in that moved by
a bad experience or something.
Yeah, imagine if I was awful to them.
Yeah.
You know,
it would completely traumatise them.
Yeah, I would say
potentially.
Potentially,
I mean, obviously,
you
not
don't want to make yourself too powerful, but
no,
like,
of course not.
You don't want to like ruin the book for them.
Yeah.
So one of my favourite criticism ones really early on. Somebody reviewed Phonogram, the first one, and they made it was like a mid-level blogger at the time, and I really liked this one because it was really negative. And he said, I really like I like lowbrow comics.
Yes.
I like pulp action. I like big explosion superheroes, and I like really highbrow art. Highbrow like Fantagraphic kind of stuff.
Yes.
What I hate, sort of the middle-brow books which are kind of like semi-genre but quote unquote smart, utterly despicable. And this is literally the most. This is the most like of that kind of book I've ever read in my life. And I was so delighted because, like, yes,
that's the point.
My entire point is I'm burning down your entire aesthetic structure. You are my enemy. I want you to hate me. And that kind of like, oh no, all your ideas about art are wrong, and I want to fight you. And that's what my work is for. That's when a critic hates you like that. That's right, because not all critical beliefs are can actually
we
exist.
got slated by the Comics Journal, and they used the word trifecta. It was very pretentious. It was quite funny. I wish I could find it.
Yeah.
I wish I could meet the guy and go, yes, this is. Would you like to go for some trifecta of lunch? It really was. I mean, it kind of. There's like people talk about like Ultimate Guardian. This was Ultimate Comics Journal. This was.
Comics Journal got a Comics Journal. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I was kind of quite flattered. I thought this is quite funny that they've noticed us. But any other questions, Ollie?
So that was a long answer.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is going to be a quick answer.
No.
It's Kieron, don't forget.
Is it annoying when Dynamite decide for their own reasons to work with Ethan Van Sciver and then people say, I'm going to boycott Thunderbolt? Or is it stupid because they don't realise it's 5 issues long?
No, I think people can do whatever I kind of absolutely support people's... So generally, that big long rant has made me actually lose my voice, which is a bad time to lose my voice. I think people can choose to, stop spending their money however they feel like for any publisher they like. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's...
Kind of vote with their feet, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like, I completely get that. And, I am not, I am sympathetic to that position.
Yes.
It's like, I'm not happy about it either.
They've been very quiet on it, haven't they?
What's he talking about the...
Yeah, I'm talking about that.
The thing.
Caesar Van Sciver or whatever he wants.
Oh, him. You're talking about what he said to the guy.
No,
is
the
this?
side frog crap that he's doing with.
But the man is just. We're not going to get started on him.
Yeah, that's like. I'll tell you
right,
afterwards. There's been a thing online.
Has there? Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's not. I think that's absolutely fine. I should say it's only 5 issues. I mean, we've actually, as I said, we finished it. So like, it all broke like after we had like finished everything, and we had no idea about it until it was online. So yeah, like it makes sense. I mean, because people are upset. What else they're going to say? I mean, I get it.
I mean, is it hard to separate the art from the artist? Do you think sometimes?
I think that is a question so large that
we need 5 hours to talk about.
I was about
to
say, you said it.
I'm sorry.
How do you feel about critics? If you're asking me a serious question,
I'm sorry.
It's hot. No, it's
because it's so difficult sometimes, isn't it?
It is, and it's one like I think is any even short answer I can do. It's complicated.
Yes.
Like I think there are things.
No, I know it's incredibly complicated question.
And it's like these are lines you have to navigate by yourself.
And you set your own lines and go, right, this is the line in the sand for me.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to...
Someone like him, he's aligning himself so particular with a particular... I think in that instance it's very difficult.
Well, that's difficult.
In the same way as you're not going to be able to separate Hitler from Mein Kampf, and rightfully so. But I think there's certain examples where people are so entrenched.
Yes.
I mean, his whole persona online...
Yes. Oh, I know. It's all part of his work.
Yeah.
And it's impossible, as you say, to separate one from the other.
Sorry.
No. It is a big question. And one more question. Got time for one more. Gentleman at the back.
You said at one point that you felt like you were kind of getting sloppy because you were having to go back and fix things when you were used to. Is it at all possible you've actually gotten better at recognising those things and you're fixing stuff that were just applied before?
Maybe I'm not hypercritical. That's kind of like it's really hard to say, and it just feels it's a feeling. As in, like, some of the errors are like, that's not a good error. That's kind of like, you wanted to get this script out because an artist needed it, and you could have, like, if you'd actually spent a little bit longer, you would have got this. You're right. I think you're right, as in it's kind of like... Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. That's the thing, is like, this is my natural weakness as a human, one of my many weaknesses as a human being is, anytime I think something good, I immediately try to think, why is that wrong? So, like, I immediately want to find the reason why me acting in a good way to somebody actually is evil. You know, that kind of, like, I've got a very cynical understanding of all human interaction, and that's nonsense, because humans aren't like that. You can actually, you know, so you're right, I should question myself more. I should question my desire to question myself more. But, you know, the fact I fixed it does say something. You know, and that's kind of the scary thing, like, the idea that you've done it. I mean, this is the thing about, like, Wickdiv. The scariest thing about Wickdiv is that we pulled it off. You know, in many ways,
Things like Usual Suspects.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Anank of me, in that all the characters are me, but Anank is me as well. You know, Anank is this creature who's manipulating these people, and I've made all these people think exactly what I wanted to for 5 years. So I am Anank, and Anank is a monster. You know, like, all these kind of things are in there, I guess. And that's why all the characters, you have, you know, all the positive characters too. I'm quite interested in asking genuinely honest questions of yourself and seeing if you find an answer or not, I guess.
I think we're going to wrap things up. Thanks to Kieron. Thanks everyone coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Thanks for turning up. I hope that went all right.